In May of 2024, my partner and I went on more than 10 tours of the landmarks and sites in Italy. But are tours worth it? We spent hundreds of dollars and dozens of research hours finding and booking the perfect tours to complement our once-in-a-lifetime dream Italian vacation. Along the way, we learned a lot about the types of tours available and the companies that offer them. In this video, we'll share our experience and help you decide if buying and taking a tour is worth it for you. But first, who are we? We are Art and Jason from Phoenix, Arizona. In the fall of 2023, we began watching YouTube to help us plan the perfect 2-week trip to Italy the following spring. Come along with us in this video series, and we'll show you the splendor of Italy. Italy, the home of delicious food, charming scenery, welcoming people, and famous sites familiar to just about everyone. What's the best way to ensure you experience every site you set your heart on when you began dreaming of visiting Italy? Some people decide to hire a professional to show them the attractions, while others feel like they're better off winging it. We'd like to enlighten you on the pros and cons of booking professional tours to help you make better decisions on what's right for you. Before we get started, if you're interested in learning more about travel in Italy, be sure to subscribe to our channel. If you like this video and find this information helpful, press the like button. Likes help our videos reach more travel lovers like you. Let's start by explaining the different types of tours and what you can expect from each. The most comprehensive type of tour is all-inclusive. That is, you hire a company that provides you with air travel to and from your destination, hotel stays, bus rides, train tickets, tour guides, and meals. This video is not about those kinds of tours. The experience we have is more what we would describe as single location or single attraction tours. This can range from something as comprehensive as an all-day sightseeing tour with boats and buses, to something as simple as a skip-the-line ticket where you're on your own self-guided tour. In between, there are various iterations of single attraction-oriented tours, where a guide gets you entry to attractions like the ruins of Pompeii, the Vatican, or the Doge's Palace in Venice. Here you spend a few hours with your group and your guide, learning about where you are and why it's important, before you're turned loose to explore on your own or move on to your next activity. There are also hybrid versions of these tours, where you might book a round-trip boat or rail journey in advance, with the intention of exploring on your own with skip-the-line tickets at your destination. What all of these options have in common is that you made your arrangements in advance and used a professional to facilitate your activities. So let's talk about the most comprehensive tour, the guided day trip, and all its pros and cons. The pros of a day trip include an itinerary, tickets in hand for all transport and admission, your tour guide's logistical savvy, your tour guide's factual knowledge, and your tour guide's connections. On our second full day in Naples, we got up early for the Capri and Blue Grotto day tour from Naples or Sorrento. Incidentally, the name, company we booked through, and price we paid for each tour we took will be listed in the video description. Keep in mind that pricing is seasonal, and you can expect to pay more or less based on the time of year you visit. Also, although we'll be mentioning a few big-name tour operators in this video, we are not sponsored by any of them. We booked this trip through Viator. I also think it's important to mention that although we booked our tours through big-name US tour operators, most of the time, the tours themselves are conducted by local tour companies. So in effect, when you book with a big name like Viator, you're paying them to find you a reputable local tour company. I'll also say that no matter which big US tour company we booked with, every local tour company they found us was a class act. Every time we arrived for a tour, we were expected. The tour began and ended on time, and the guide was knowledgeable, friendly, and enthusiastic. I'm sure individual results will vary, but based on our experience, We wouldn't hesitate to book again with any of the companies you'll hear about in this video. Let's talk about the pros for this kind of tour. Number 1, itinerary. The island of Capri mainly consists of 2 villages, one called Capri and the other called simply Capri. Capri is the more folksier of the two, with local artisans and family-owned restaurants. The village of Capri caters more toward wealthier travelers with high-end restaurants and expensive shops selling designer and luxury goods. All these facts were things we didn't know when we stepped off the boat at the marina on Capri that morning. Had we been on our own, we wouldn't have known where to go or what to do. We no doubt would have had a great day trip, but we would most likely have missed out on much of what we actually saw that day. Thanks to a well-planned itinerary by our tour company, we never had to worry about being lost or missing out on the most popular attractions. Pro number 2, tickets. Our visit to Capri involved multiple tickets. Our boat trip from the port of Naples to the Isle of Capri. Our admission to the Blue Grotto. Our tickets for the chairlift to the top of Monte Solaro. Our tickets for the hydrofoil back to Naples. At every turn, our guide was there, tickets in hand. All we had to do was take them and use them. One thing that is common in Italy for those who don't book ahead is waiting in line to buy tickets. There are times in peak season when you can wait for hours just to buy your tickets, wasting precious time that could have been spent enjoying your location. Combine that with having to figure out where to actually queue up to buy your tickets, and it's clear, to us at least, that a guide managing your tickets can be a lifesaver. Numbers 3, 4, and 5 are your tour guide's expertise. We met our tour guide with the rest of our group at the port of Naples early that morning. After the introductions, our guide gave us a briefing, a pep talk really, on a strategy we could follow to ensure we spent the least time waiting and the most time enjoying. He let us know that we'd be arriving right around the same time as other boats from other cities on the Italian mainland, and we could beat the crowds by slowly making our way to the boat's exit as we heard the engines throttle down before docking. He let us know which dock number we'd be arriving at and how to find our way quickly from our berth to a meeting point at Dock 0, where we could be one of the first buses to leave for the Blue Grotto. Our guide knew the history of the island and was never stumped by any question that anyone in our group asked. Our guide knew many of the local business owners and was able to give us great recommendations for shopping and dining. In short, our guide's knowledge, connections, and logistical savvy added so much value to our day that we wouldn't have had without him. And now for some cons of this type of tour. Expense, limited free time, missing out on the local flavor, and tiring. Number 1, expensive. So I guess expensive is a relative term. For this day trip, we paid just over $197 each. We were traveling in May, which is a little before peak tourist season, so I can imagine that the price could be higher at that time of year. So is $200 per person expensive? I'd say that's a decision that each individual traveler has to weigh. Number 2, limited free time. When you're on a day trip like this, you're at the mercy of the tour's schedule. For example, at our second stop of Capri, we were presented with 3 activities we might participate in: the chairlift to the top of Monte Solaro, getting lunch, and visiting the local shops. We realized about halfway through our chairlift experience that we barely had enough time to get back and have lunch. Our local shopping time ended up being nearly non-existent, as we had to rush to get back to the bus for our next stop on the tour. This experience kind of ties in with con number 3, missing out on local flavor. We found it valuable that our itinerary hit all the highlights, but this often comes at the expense of keeping you on well-worn paths rather than exploring the back alleys where the day-to-day life of the locals takes place. I suppose this is as good an excuse as any for planning a return trip. Finally, con number 4. An all-day go, go, go tour like this can be tiring. I can say this: we arrived back at the port of Naples slightly after 5:30 p.m., and we were exhausted. I would also say that just about any sort of long vacation day has the same effect. Now let's look at another type of tour, a little less intense than the first one, a guided tour of a local attraction. Here are the pros of this type of tour. Skip the line, tickets in hand, hitting the highlights, and your guide's knowledge. On our first full day in Rome, we went on the tour guide's St. Peter's Dome Climb and Sistine Chapel combo tour. A point of order here. The travel company, The Tour Guy, also books tours in Rome under the name The Roman Guy. The tour guy operates tours all over Europe, but they've somehow started using both names for their tours in Rome. We've taken to using the two terms interchangeably. I would also urge you to use The Tour Guy as a search term in YouTube for videos that will help you decide where to go and what to do on any European vacation. Their videos are very much ads for their business, and they do kind of give you the hard sell, but their videos are also high quality and entertaining with great personalities. We watched many of their videos to help us plan our trip, some of them multiple times. Again, no one is sponsoring this video. We just found the tour guide's videos very helpful. Although not mentioned in the title of this tour, it also included a visit to the Vatican Museum. Let's go over the pros of this type of tour. Number 1, skip the line. I would say that skip the line is something you should expect with any sort of tour that includes a guide. But let's understand what skip the line really means. If you have a skip the line tour, or even a standalone skip the line ticket for a self-guided tour, you're still going to wait in line. You'll approach the entrance to your venue and there will be a line, and you will wait in it. The line you skip is the line to buy your tickets, and there is some real value here. We waited sometimes 15 minutes to enter a venue, and sometimes less, and sometimes not at all. However, the ticket lines we witnessed, depending on the time of day, could be hours long. Part of this Vatican tour included admission to the Vatican Museum. On our way there, we walked by a line of people waiting to buy tickets for this attraction that was several city blocks long. We were in the door of the museum in about 10 minutes. Pro number 2, your tour guide has tickets in hand. On our tour of the Vatican, we needed tickets to get into St. Peter's Basilica. We needed tickets to climb the stairs to the top of the dome. We needed tickets to get into the Vatican Museum. In every case, our guide handed us our tickets as we needed them, and in we went. No need to know where the tickets are sold or to wait in line to buy them. On to pro number 3, hitting all the highlights. One of the best things about a guided tour like this is you're sure to hit all the famous spots that you see on TV and in travel brochures. On this tour, we were hoping to see St. Peter's Basilica, the Dome at St. Peter's, and the Sistine Chapel. At the Vatican Museum, we wanted for sure to see the Gallery of Maps and the Gallery of Tapestries. Because of the priorities that were set when this tour was created, all of those boxes were checked. Finally, item number 4 in the pro column is your tour guide's knowledge and expertise. On all of these tours, I was impressed with the amount of knowledge that our guides volunteered, as well as the knowledge they possessed when asked questions. I will also say that our guides exuded an air of pride in their craft, as well as their city, that really shone through in their attitude and enthusiasm. So with our 4 pros checked off, let's explore some of the cons associated with a tour of this type. 1. Expense. 2. Feeling rushed. 3. Missing out on minutiae. 4. Feeling tired. In this video, expense is a term that comes up often, and I guess that's the point. It's in the title. Are they worth it? Value is such a subjective concept, we wouldn't presume to make that call for you. We're trying to help you evaluate if the expense associated with booking these tours is worth it to you. The expense associated with this tour on the day we took it was $164 per person. For this, we got all our admissions, the knowledge of a local Roman guide, and an itinerary that made certain we saw all the things on our list. The number 2 con of this sort of tour is the feeling of being rushed. Now don't get me wrong, we were given time at all of our sites to explore on our own. But when push comes to shove, you're on the tour company's clock, so when it's time to go, it's time to go. This goes hand in hand with con number 3, and that's the feeling that you're missing the little things. When we toured the Vatican Museum, we got to see the 2 galleries that we really wanted to, but the Vatican Museum has over 70,000 exhibits. Most of these are not on the tour. Keep in mind, however, that it would probably take a lifetime to visit all that's on display at this museum. The final con is feeling tired. In this particular case, a more appropriate word would be exhausted. The tour we booked is 5 hours long and it moves at a pretty brisk pace. So by the time it ended, we were pretty much done. Keep in mind though, the tours like this are what you make of them. It's easy for me to say that we were rushed through the popular galleries, that you have to keep moving, and that you don't have a chance to take your time and explore the little things. All of this is true, but here's the thing. Once the tour concludes, you are welcome to stay and explore the Vatican Museum on your own for as long as you like, or at least until they close. If you've got the stamina, you're able to do all the exploring you want. We took tours similar to this at the Colosseum and the Doge's Palace and St. Mark's Basilica in Venice, and in each case, once the tour was over, you could stick around for as long as you wanted. The final type of tour we'll be discussing in this video is the self-guided variety. This can take several forms, and the form you choose depends on what you're seeing and what you hope to get from it. One thing we do recommend is purchasing skip-the-line tickets, if appropriate, and when possible, to buy these tickets in advance. Tours often sell out, and the last thing you want is to find out on the day you scheduled your dream tour that you can't go. That being said, there are always exceptions to this rule. For example, I wouldn't recommend booking a Venice gondola ride in advance. If you were to book this online ahead of time, a third party will need to take a cut. I've seen gondola tickets online for 3 times what you'd pay if you just hired a gondola on the spot when you're in Venice. We also got our skip-the-line tickets to the Pantheon in Rome about 10 minutes before we entered. Our final day in Rome was our own self-guided walking tour that included the Spanish Steps, the Trevi Fountain, and the Pantheon. When we got to the Pantheon late in the afternoon and saw how long the line was, we got on our Get Your Guide app on our cell phone and bought our $16 skip-the-line tickets. 10 minutes later, we were met by a local tour rep with our tickets and walked right up to the entrance. All this being said, if there's an attraction that you plan to do as a self-guided skip-the-line, decide how dear it is to you, and let that help you decide if you should book ahead or book on the fly. What are the pros of a self-guided tour? 1, you can go at your own pace. 2, you can see what you want and skip what you want. 3, they are significantly cheaper than a tour with a guide. And what are the cons? 1, you have to figure out yourself what to see and do. 2, there is no one to explain the significance of what you're seeing. And 3, you have to research and book your own admission tickets.
I did.
Still, depending on your interest level and the time you have, a self-guided tour with skip-the-line tickets may make the most sense. Our stay in Florence was the shortest of all the cities we visited in Italy, at only 2 nights. On our first full day there, we had scheduled a visit to the Leaning Tower of Pisa in the morning and a visit to the Duomo di Firenze that same afternoon. From our home base in Florence, Pisa was an hour each way by train, so that didn't leave us a lot of time for a tour at either of our destinations that day. We booked a very affordable skip-the-line ticket to the Leaning Tower of Pisa that included the cathedral and baptistry for $38 each. We returned to Florence that afternoon because we had booked the Duomo di Firenze skip-the-line dome climb tickets for $25 each. We didn't learn much about either attraction, but we've now seen both the Leaning Tower of Pisa and climbed to the top of it, and we've seen the Florence Cathedral and climbed to the top of that too. In our opinion, this was a good use of the limited time we had for our brief visit to Florence. So let's wrap this up. The big question raised by this video was, are tours in Italy worth it? And the answer is, that's up to the individual traveler. It's all a matter of evaluating your time, your budget, your level of interest, and your hopes and dreams to make the best decision for your situation. Our hope is that you are now able to better evaluate what's worth it for you, now that you have a better understanding of what to expect, what has worked for others, and what your options are. If you have any tales of your experience with tours in Italy, we'd love to hear about them in the comments. Also, be on the lookout for the rest of this series as we document the rest of our trip. Best wishes. We look forward to hearing from you.